We've been both coexisting with and fighting against various forms of fungi since we evolved into our current form. We eat them from shiitake to portobello. We use them as ingredients to make our bread rise. And members of kingdom fungi have saved countless lives in the form of antibiotics like penicillin. We even use them to ferment alcohol with the fungi Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Kingdom fungi also contains what we call the masters of decomposition, meaning that they are the primary way organic matter that was once living is returned back into the ecosystem in its most basic forms so that other organisms can use the carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen that were once trapped in the dead organism. In this way, they are considered to be heterotrophic since they are using other organisms for energy and nutrition to survive and reproduce. And on the evolutionary tree of life, kingdom fungi are more closely related to animals like us than they are to the photosynthetic autotrophs of kingdom plantae. There are 3.8 million different species of fungi, and there are many more that we haven't had a chance yet to describe. All of these individuals will generally grow as a filamentous tubular hyphae that we call mycelium. Fungi are what we call having a complex life cycle, meaning their life cycle involves change in morphology, changes in diet, and behaviors throughout each stage in their life. In contrast, we humans are going to live out what's called a simple life cycle. Now, this may seem counterintuitive given that humans are going to be more complex than plants and fungi, but humans, unlike fungi, have essentially the same form and dietary needs as we grow and age. As with all living things, kingdom fungi needs to reproduce and generally does so through either sexually or asexually. Sexual reproduction is going to occur in the homothallic or heterothallic mycelia, and asexually via spores and fragmentation or budding. Sexual reproduction will result in higher biodiversity, but it isn't always an option. So even though asexual reproduction results in clones of the parent, it's better than nothing at all. These various reproductive strategies allow them to create vast colonies and, if needed, travel great distances, sometimes even over bodies of water while in the form of stasis, until a nutrient-rich area is detected, ripe for settling down, eating organisms, and having spawns of their own. Kingdom fungi is clearly super important to humans and our entire planet, so it's no surprise they play a pivotal role in climate change. Just like most aspects of climate change, the story isn't a simple one, and being a multi-pronged issue, I have both good news and bad news. So let's start with the bad news. The bad news is current research being carried out by researchers in California and Mexico have shown that fungi, when placed in warmer plots of soil, which recreates the warming that is occurring in various climates, are expelling more of their energy for cellular metabolic maintenance. So basically just focusing everything they have on surviving instead of using that energy to aid in the decomposition of other organics. This is important because we need fungi to decompose organic material because it enables the necessary nutrients to return back to the ecosystem, which is going to then aid in plant growth, which is going to feed animals, which is going to feed us and help the continuous life-death cycle stay in balance. Fungi are the only thing that can really break down the lignins and cellulose. Structural compounds are found in plant cells, thus releasing those carbon back into the soil, making it available to other organisms. So in short, no decomposition means less nutrients, less life, and more dead stuff. When fungi are aiding in decomposition, they are also moving carbon from the soil back into the atmosphere as CO2. With fungi having to focus on survival, this disrupts the feedback between climates and ecosystems. This may sound like more bad news since all we really talk about is more CO2 and climate change being a bad thing, but we need a certain amount of CO2 to be released from the soil into the atmosphere to leave behind enough nitrogen to feed both plants and the soil microbes like fungi, who rely on the nitrogen to be able to be performed in their functions to breaking down organic material once it has died. It's really all about balance, and climate change has resulted in a disruption of that balance. Warming temperatures are also having a detrimental effect, such as biodiversity reduction of kingdom fungi and increasing the ability for stress-tolerant groups, such as mycorrhizal fungi, to be increasing in ecosystem disruption and thus creating even more opportunity for pathogenic fungi to cause infection in both plants and animals. Because many members of kingdom fungi are masters at adapting to environmental change, we have seen a greater frequency of fungal infections in humans that are going to be resistant to any sort of modern medical treatment. While becoming more tolerant of warmer weather, these particular fungi are also more tolerant of the average temperature of the human body. And it's not just humans that are being affected. We're also seeing an increased activity of pathogenic fungi in frogs, snakes, bats, and even trees. Okay, so that's the bad news. The good news is that scientists are also finding ways of using fungi to break down things like plastics, since we clearly have way too much and it takes countless years to break down. Imagine fungi as being a possible superhero and cleaning crew for all the sorts of human-made garbage and packaging that we've created. As if it wasn't impressive enough, everything that you've heard, they're also being utilized in cleaning up oil spills and the remnants of nuclear meltdowns. It may sound like science fiction, but rest assured, there is solid science behind these discoveries. Ongoing research into nuclear meltdown sites studies how mycorrhizal fungi have the ability to absorb and extract heavy metals like radioactive isotopes from soil, thus making it usable again. In doing so, it may also aid healthy trees in growing in what we call the radioactive areas. And once the mushroom is finished extracting those dangerous materials from the soil, they will then be disposed of as radioactive material somewhere else. Clean, efficient, much better than a bucket of soapy water and a dirty sponge. Last but not least, a really exciting frontier in bioenergy is using fungi to break down the lignin mentioned before and is used as an important source of biofuel. This bioenergy develops and is going to be more affordable and more of an eco-friendly way once we're able to really ramp up this system. There are so many exciting and interesting areas of research being done around kingdom fungi with some incredible scientists at the forefront of this expansive area. Well, until next time, thank you for joining me on Exploring Environmental Biology.